Tales of Vigilus. Desperate measures. Pilot Second Class Geridan Fern wrenched the Sky Child's control stick hard. The Valkyrie veered up towards the artificial ridge of the Tazella line, the rest of the squadron in a close arrowhead formation behind him. He felt the G-forces tugging at him as the flyer, already pushed beyond reasonable tolerances, took the turn at the most acute angle he could manage without ripping its wings off. But 9 years in the Imperial Navy had given him a good eye for manoeuvres, and he pulled it off. The cliff-like bulk of the ridge lowered to show more of the flak-churned skies, and then the flyer was over the top. The sight that greeted him punched adrenaline through his system, with as much force as if he had been hit by a bucket of scalding water. Hundreds, thousands perhaps, of Orc war effigies stomped towards the Denios trench line, each idol a combination of idiot cruelty and sheer brawn. The dust plains outside Mortwald were a sea of brown, rusted metal and hissing pistons, and they were coming for the trenches, step by thunderous step. Some of the contraptions were a little bigger than a sentinel, whilst others seemed like mountains given life. He watched incredulous as one of the biggest took a ponderous step forward and crushed a lesser machine as if it was no more than a beetle. A deafening roar reached him, so loud he could hear it through the plexiglass cockpit in thick headphones. Not the heart-stirring thunder of engines, but the throaty, wordless war cry of the greenskin race. He felt his lip curl, a hot sensation of bile at the base of his throat. "We're doomed," he muttered. "Vigilus is doomed." "Keep together, Fern," said Godfred. "We've got a duty to do here." The gunner's voice punctured his fatalist mood. Godfred had a point. They had a passenger hold full of reavers, each a giant clad in blue-white heraldry discoloured by blood and soot, and a responsibility to bear them into the thick of the fray. Ever since the broadcast they were calling the Vox Terribalis, the distinction between Astra Militarium, Imperial Navy, and Adeptus Astartes had blurred when it came to matters of transport. There was no time for debate, no time for protocol. Death had come to Vigilus, from above as well as below. Anything human had to fight in whatever way it could to ensure the planet had a chance. "Head for the largest effigy," came the rough, buzzing voice of the veteran sergeant. "Use flak towers for cover. Entire squadron." "Acknowledged," said Fern, his tone flat. A sick feeling of vindication mingled with a bottomless pit of dread in his stomach. Less than 3 hours ago he'd bet Godfred that the squad would order them to go after the most dangerous target they could find. Even then, he had not imagined in his wildest dreams they would be commanded to make an attack run on an Orc Gargant. The skies were filled with corkscrewing trails of smoke, with bursts of fire hurling cinders and spinning shrapnel, with blossoming flak and white contrails. Every so often the vista was pierced with the white-tailed surface-to-air missiles, or a darting swarm of bullets as an Orc fighter shot past on an attack run. Fern felt his Valkyrie shake as solid shot punched into his wing, altered his flight path just a little so Godfred could get a firing solution. A spear of ruby light cut the gloom, and the next greenskin craft to veer towards them burst apart, as if it had been full of explosives. "Nice," said Fern. "One down, 300,000 to go," replied Godfred. "Wasn't it you who told me not to be defeatist?" "Incoming! Break left!" The urgent tones of Retrovic, the squad mate on his right wing, cut through the exchange. Fern yanked the control column once more, and the Valkyrie shuddered as it banked hard. A fat greenskin missile veered under the wing. "Too close," said Fern. "Target sighted," said Detherin, the pilot of the Vengeful Blade, to his left. "Still oblivious. Thank the Emperor." Fern thought the Gargant's evil-looking head, its eyes glowing red in the darkness, swiveled to lock onto them for a moment. It was a pagan god of destruction made of steel and bullets. At its side marched stomper walkers, half as tall, yet each capable of flattening a hab block. Though the Gargan's main cannons continued hammering the hive city behind them, one of its shoulder guns, a rotary cannon with 6 barrels each as long as the Sky Child, drew a bead on the squadron. Fern could see its barrels blurring, then a hail of shot thundered past. There was a deafening boom to the left. "Thrown," said Godfrey. "That was Detherin, I think. Blade, report." Nothing but static. "Evade!" Another orc fusillade stitched past. The plexiglass of the Sky Child's canopy crazed as something struck it a glancing blow, and red alarm icons flared on the cockpit display as one of the wings took heavy damage. A slamming impact shook Fern badly, smashing into his failsafe and sending sirens blaring. A sensation of numbness spread through his body, sticky wetness on his legs. "Veer left," came a voice. "Veer left and open the side door." Fern didn't have it in him to argue. He pulled the Valkyrie hard left, punching the toggle that would release the side door hydraulics. A second later, the chugging roar of the Valkyrie's heavy bolter rose above the din of the battle below, a thick staccato boom that inevitably spelled death to anything in its crosshairs. Out of the corner of his eye, he glimpsed the orc gunner on the Gargant's rotary cannon torn apart in an explosion of gore. The punishing storm of fire coming from it stopped. Shuddering, wounded, but not out of the fight, the Sky Child tore on. Fern gritted his teeth and dived, the sharp curve bellying out in terrifying proximity to the mountainous orc war machine's blunt head. Godfrey released the Valkyrie's Hellstrike missiles, and they shot down, blasting into the mountainous thing's shoulder and tearing away a huge slab of metal. It did not slow. "What on terror are they?" began Godfrey. "Report!" He saw a grapnel shoot and catch on the eye socket of the Gargant. A moment later, the Valkyrie listed sharply to the right, its new curving trajectory so violent a cascade of alerts blossomed across the cockpit display. A klaxon bleated next to his head as the Sky Child described a tight circle over the massive war effigy. "Now!" shouted a reaver. Fern saw the sergeant and his men jumping, grav veins flaring, to land on top the Gargant's shoulders amid a fusillade of orc gunfire. A moment later, they were in among the greenskins, knives flashing. Then they were out of sight. Fern hit the klaxon override and whispered a prayer to the aircraft's machine spirit as the Sky Child curved around once more. Bullets thundered past the cockpit, their trajectory all but vertical. He felt several of them punch into the wing and grimaced. Valkyries were built to last, but with this level of punishment, they would not ride out another minute. "I said, report!" "They maglocked the grapnel to the fuselage and tied us to the infernal machine," shouted Godfrey. "I can't get it free!" The Valkyrie roared around once more. Wrapping the thick cable around the Gargant's head, it dragged and crunched across the thing's face, ripping out a complex eye gun jutting from its right socket in a spray of sparks. Fern saw the reavers plant something on the head and the shoulders of the effigy, explosives no doubt, and then leap for the cable, grabbing it one after the other as the sergeant kicked the grapnel's barbed head free. Then the Sky Child jerked away with a scream of engines, the grapnel cable trailing behind it. Judging by the additional weight Fern could feel in the steering column, all 5 of the reavers were in tow. He heard a thunderous detonation in the middle distance, and a roar of dismay from the orcs they were leaving in their wake. "I'll be burned," said Godfrey. "They did it. Reckon they'll all be able to hang on till we get clear." Fern shook his head, gunning the engine as he blasted over the milling orc rearguard below. Fire reached them, but did little more than ping from the Sky Child's armoured fuselage. The greenskins always put their heaviest guns to the fore, and when the war lust was upon them, they had little time for targeting anything that wasn't right in front of them. There was a chance the Valkyrie would make it intact to Otek, the hive sprawl's pollution-spouting towers glimmering on the horizon. "They are Space Marines," said Fern eventually, his tone somewhere between grudging admiration and raw bitterness. "They do as they damn well please."